You all are guilty if you approve this of abusing children.
He sometimes gets sent home before I even make it back home from dropping him off.
Right away, we're going to see behavioral issues.
Because of my son's behavior, he saw a new psychologist this year. His behaviors were increasing, were getting worse and worse. They were increasing his ADHD medication to the maximum dose.
And the parents, what are they going to do? They're going to go to people like you and get medicine and get them on meds.
Until I got him a new psychologist, and he did the works, the DNA testing and everything. Called me right away and said my son was 3 times the toxic level of amphetamine. And I had to cut him off cold turkey, which put him into severe behavioral issues and psychosis.
We're going to see a generation of psychopaths.
I apologize for ending. This is a really important conversation. Mm-hmm. And we can make more time for you for sure in another venue.
Okay.
Thank
How?
you.
And when?
We're going to follow up for sure.
What's your name?
Today. My name's Kelly Jones. Mm-hmm. And I'll make sure that you have my contact information.
Okay. And how long should it be before I'm going to hear from you?
You'll hear from me in 24 hours.
This is Michael Lawrence Accountability, sitting here with Justin Spees of the dreaded Rabble Rouser. We are probably going to be doing a podcast here soon. We wanted to get together. I wanted to get together with Justin because last night at the USD 497 meeting, something dawned on me. I heard people in there talking about the response to COVID. And it looks as though more people are starting to realize that response may have been not necessarily correct. And it got me to thinking about you and going in and telling them that you thought that they were doing the wrong things.
My name is Dr. Justin Spees, 3904 Kimmo Circle here in Lawrence. I'm glad you turned your camera on there, Marcelino. I was going to ask you to do that because I got something to say to you guys.
I want to hit on the child development aspects. I'll be honest with you. That's what my curiosity is. You have a doctorate in child development.
Human development.
Human development. So, but that includes child development and rearing a child and bringing a child up in modern society, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So one of the things we heard a lot of in the school board meeting last night were behavioral issues, issues with class size and things like this. Now, the behavioral issues, I want to tie those back to what you talked about and how the masks affected kids' learning and kids' interpersonal relationships. Mm-hmm. I'll elaborate on that a little bit. How did the masks, tell us how the masks actually impacted that? I think we all realize it, but I want to hear from somebody who is actually educated in this area that can speak to this from that education and tell us what happened with these kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so being able to read facial expressions and versus just, blank expressionless faces, and being able to read the emotion of the person that you're interacting with. And kids went a long period of time of no longer doing that or needing to do that both ways, them seeing the person in front of them and the person seeing them as well. And I was concerned from an attachment perspective, and when I started protesting the mask mandates there in the school district, that's what my sign was saying, is that it was going to disrupt attachment. And there's a direct link between the kind of attachment style and behaviors that are exhibited.
Now I want to get into attachment. Define what you're talking about when you say attachment.
Well, so attachment originally, it was developed by John Bowlby. And he, back in the 1950s, 1960s, and he originally wanted to call it the theory of love, but his wife thought it sounded too new age or too hippie-ish, so he settled on the more kind of scientific sounding term for love, which is attachment. And so basically, if you think of attachment in terms of love, you start to understand what it is a little bit more. How you get attached to someone has a lot to do with how you read their facial characteristics. So I was worried that the inability to recognize emotions or even need to recognize emotions throughout the day, every day for months on end, was going to negatively impact how kids feel emotion overall. And if you lack empathy, you lack emotion, you lack the ability to read emotion in other people. And on top of that, I also think they were projecting a lot of their inner experience. So if you see somebody expressionless, your inner experience now tells you what you think that person is. So they might automatically think that person is angry or mad or upset, but that person might be smiling underneath that mask, and they wouldn't know.
That's a good point, because when when half of your face is covered, you know, you can be upset or smiling. And how does it really, I mean, how does it really tell the difference? Because your brow makes the same basic form.
I know. And this stuff was so maddening for me to not see the school district understand that. These are what you just described there with facial recognition with the eyes, these are scientific psychology studies that were done very early on in the study of psychology, 50s and 60s, just about that as well, where it's hard to read facial expression. You need the entire face to kind of know what somebody is thinking and feeling and expressing. How could you really expect a 2-year-old to have a mask on all day? Why would you want to have, well, a 2-year-old, not all day, but when the child goes out, why would you want to have a 5-year-old be in a mask all day long?
Well,
what is the point here? What is going on here?
My doctorate is in lifespan human development. Got it from Kansas State University. I'm a professor around here. I teach numerous lifespan human development classes. We'll get into that in a second. But as researchers, it's funny you mentioned, Marcelina, you follow the science. As researchers, I'm sure you're aware that if I was on a university and wanted to run a study where we're putting masks on kids all day long for any period of time, let alone 30 days, a year and a half, no IRB in America prior to this nonsense, IRB Internal Review Board, would approve that. Why? Because it's stupid. It's dangerous. It's unnecessarily dangerous. And even if they did approve it, there would be so many precautions in place. At a minimum, I would have to provide a nonstop supply of clean masks to these kids all day long. I would have to have breaks in place for these kids all day long, and that's not happening. Now, even if they did approve that study and I went out to try and get participants for this, there isn't a parent in the world that would sign up for it because it is stupid. It is dangerous. To follow the science, you're starting at the wrong place. What do you know about attachment? What do you know about attachment? What do you know about attachment? Everyone here, look it up. You'll know why this is child abuse. Look up attachment. We have to have attachment, and masks are destroying it. We're going to see a generation of psychopaths. We're going to see right away, we're going to see behavioral issues. And the parents, what are they going to do? They're going to go to people like you and get medicine and get them on meds. And here we go around and around and around and around and around and around. And you like that. And you like that. You like that. You all are guilty if you approve this of abusing children. Every single one of you, it will be on your conscience the rest of your life. Time will tell. You are on the wrong side, and you will look back on it and say, God, I'm a freaking idiot. My daughter plays volleyball with Marcelino's daughter, and one time my daughter had an earache, and we were just kind of talking there. Had an earache. The first thing he said was tinnitus. She didn't have ear ringing. She had an earache. You didn't even know what tinnitus is. And we have to listen to you. 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 That's my daughter. My daughter, not your daughter, not your daughter, not your daughter, none of your daughters. And I don't give one shit if you provide a mountain of evidence that supports your position. I don't give a shit what you say or how.
Now that we're past that point and we're out of the masks and we're starting to see some of the impact of that, last night at the board meeting we heard a lot about behavioral issues.
Yeah,
and
I'm not surprised to hear it.
I'm hearing you talk about the attachment disorders that could be resulting from this, and I'm thinking, well, there's your behavioral issues.
He excelled academically and won awards in academics, even though he is in special education for ADHD and behavioral issues. He was not in the classroom for most of the lessons. He won the highest award in math. in Pinckney. This year, as of right now, he is failing every class. And he is only going to school, they've cut him down to half-day schooling, and then even cut that short to where he can't go in with the rest of the kids. He goes in at 8:30. And the 4 classes he's going to, failing every single one, and getting sent home during those hours.
You all are guilty if you approve this of abusing children.
He sometimes gets sent home before I even make it back home from dropping him off.
Right away, we're going to see behavioral issues.
Because of my son's behavior, he saw a new psychologist this year. His behaviors were increasing, were getting worse and worse. They were increasing his ADHD medication to the maximum dose.
And the parents, what are they going to do? They're going to go to people like you and get medicine and get them on meds.
Until I got him a new psychologist, and he did the works, the DNA testing and everything. Called me right away and said my son was 3 times the toxic level of amphetamine. And I had to cut him off cold turkey, which put him into severe behavioral issues and psychosis.
We're going to see a generation of psychopaths.
He is right now just regulating on new meds, and he missed a lot of days this year. He missed Monday due to it being a year anniversary. His cousin, 14 years old, was murdered that day last year and took it very hard, and he was very emotional. I didn't think as a mother it was right for me to take him to school, being that emotional, he would probably get sent back home anyways. Now they're trying to send my son to truancy, adding another problem. My son has been a victim since day one at West of bullying and racism. He gets called a nigger in the hallways. He was jumped by 2 of the boys on his birthday. And even last week, after they came back from spring break, 3 of the 4 days he was at school, he was bullied, and another kid was taunting him and wanting to beat him up. And my son walked away, even with his behavior issues. I've actually have proof that some of the things that they have sent my son home from and suspended him for are lies. I've watched the video from the resource officer at the school. Also, I received a letter about the Black History Month event, field trip that happened at the Lead Center in regards to the civil rights music and the meaning behind it, which I think is very important. It's not like a fun field trip like, Legoland. It's an educational trip. My son was not suspended at that time. I got a letter the day before, me and his dad, that our son is not allowed to attend. We even offered to not let him ride the bus. We'll take him in our private vehicle, sit with him, and leave after the event. But I think that lesson was very important to him at this point in his life. And they denied to let him go. I made it a point. I said that he's been bullied by these boys. And I said, I bet you guys let these boys go.
I have to cut you off at the same time. I apologize. I'm going to ask that Dr. Lewis follow up with you.
I have messaged him.
Okay.
I've sent him everything, and I've gotten one little response with no answer.
Okay.
I went all the way up from him, his administrative assistants, the head of special education, her administrative assistants. I filed a formal complaint,
similar to
and now I'm here.
I appreciate that you're here. And
Thank you.
And I think it's really important that you're here. And
Yes.
I will.
I think
see
my
if
son
there's follow-up.
deserves
I agree.
an education, just like a public education, just like everybody else.
I apologize for ending. This is a really important conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And we can make more time for you for sure in another venue.
Okay,
Thank you.
how? And when?
We're going to follow up for
What's
sure.
your name?
Today. My name's Kelly Jones.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll make sure that you have my contact information. You can-
Okay,
if
and
you
how long
stay,
should it be before I
I'm gonna
hear from you?
You'll hear from me in 24 hours.
24 hours?
Yep.
Okay, because I have a meeting set up on Wednesday with West.
The masks is one aspect of it, but something else that the school is responsible for is shutting down school as well. So you had kids that were isolated, removed from their social environment, just overnight, removed in the house, scared to death about the pandemic, completely shut off from everyone. That's another factor, the isolating factor of it, and the schools are responsible for that. And that was the first time I got in contact with the school district at all, was the very end of July of 2020, because I was concerned about them staying on virtual learning in the fall there of 2020, and I was expressing just what I basically said here, my concerns that it's going to be on their conscience, that in the future they're risking the the emotional development, the education, the social development of an entire generation of children. And it was based on, talking about the zeitgeist, it was solely based on, and this is coming from one of the board members, named G.R. Gordon Ross, it was based on just a survey that they had submitted to the community where it found that, I believe it was 63% of parents said that they would be scared to have their kids go back to school, and 71% of teachers were scared to go back to school. I might have those flipped, but those are the numbers. And based on just that survey alone, I mean, he flat out even tells me he didn't base his decision to go virtual learning in fall of 2020, he didn't base it on any research evidence at all. He based it on this survey, and it was based on fear. And so just think about that. And I raised that argument, and my reply email to him was, well, so great. Every time something scary comes down the pike and the people around me are scared, now I can't have my kids go to school in the normal way because they're scared. I mean, where do we draw the line? People get scared about the flu. I mean, are you going to do a survey and now we're back online? I mean,
But I mean, when you talk about it, they take a poll, and 63% of the people say, or 71% of the people say, I mean, polls are positive, negative. They're not, you very rarely end up with a 50-50. So you're either going to have, what was the purpose of the poll? The purpose of the poll was to decide how we were going to handle things. I'm not saying it's right, but what were they supposed to do?
Well, I don't know. Polls also, just kind of self-select for people that would answer polls. Like, for example, I didn't answer it. I don't even remember seeing it. So I wonder how many other people out there fell into that as well. It was a sampling of people during COVID that would answer a poll about that. And no, I don't think majority should rule on that at all. I think, it's like I asked them in the email, why can't those people stay home and everybody else can go in? I don't really understand what's going on here. Why do we all have to flip our lives upside down? But how to correct it? I don't know. It's such an interesting thing because it would also imply that everybody that went along with it is now on this side saying that we were wrong and we can go forward and try to work on this together. If there was some kind of implementation of how to correct these kind of behavioral issues, it would take some kind of acknowledgement to go along with the process that even like what the school district did was even wrong. They're not going to do that.
So it's going to be hard for them to work to correct a problem that they don't acknowledge exists.
Right, exactly. And I feel like, obviously a lot of parents do it, and people are waking up, I think, more and more.
So is that where the answer is then? The parents, maybe we need to see more parents at the school board meeting talking about this and explaining the problems that they're having with their kids. And
yeah, I think the answer always should lie with the parents.
Okay. And so how do we get more people to that school board meeting other than me trying to let people know what's happening? There's a video coming out this afternoon that's hopefully going to let people know, but that's how else do you get people there?
That's the $1 million question. When people have an issue that matters to them, people will show up.
How do we get them to understand that the issue that matters to their neighbor is not so different than the issue that matters to them, and it's all interconnected?
That's what I was just going to say, and that is the $1 million question. It racked my brain. How do you get people to do that? Because you have a whole bunch of people that will tell me they're looking for something to do. They're tired of just reading about it online and being just mad or whatever. And still, you can't even get to the point of just even on a regular basis showing up to these meetings. And
I've tried to motivate people, and it's interesting the crowds that can motivate. We see now with the homeless crowd, there's a lot of people that'll come in and talk about that, both sides. With the Palestinian issues, there's a lot of people that'll come in and talk about that, and the city commission can even argue that that's not germane. We look at Sanctuary Alliance and the illegal immigration stuff. There's a lot of people that come out and speak about that. And anytime Lawrence is going to do one of these feel-good things where we're going to make a proclamation that really doesn't mean anything, there's a whole bunch of people in there to hear it. But where do those people go when it's time to actually start addressing some of the problems that are creating the reasons why those proclamations are necessary? How do we get those people to stay in the meeting? I'll give you an example, and I've said this to you before. This was when the city commission was doing the proclamation for Martin Luther King Day. And they had a young man in there that spoke about, I don't know whether he was from Black Lives Matter or another organization, LFK or something, but in any case, he spoke about what was important to him. And as he's leaving, I say to him, hey man, where are you going? There's a lot more struggling to do in here. And he just looked at me with a blank look and walked out. Now, I don't fault him for leaving. I fault him for not understanding that we're all in this together, and that unless he's willing to stand next to me and I'll stand next to him, we're never going to get anywhere. That's why they don't listen to us, because we're not there enough to make a difference. I guarantee that if that meeting was packed every week with concerned citizens who were out there being outspoken and stuff, those commissioners would start listening to the people. They'd have to.
Especially about taxes. Every year, when I was running for county commission, I was going to all of those meetings throughout the summer as they were getting ready to vote to raise taxes. If there ain't an issue that should get people more, united and motivated to show up, that would be it. But, people just, I don't know, man, it's, apathy. And,
well, before 1913, and I saw this, and this is real, before 1913 in the IRS legislation, we didn't pay income tax.
I know.
And we still had a federal government, we still had the Constitution and the laws, we still had public schools. We had the public schoolhouse out there, even out on the prairie in the middle of nowhere. How did we do it back then? And we can't do it now. And this whole tax idea, it's a tax and spend environment, and we've been taught that our entire life, and we've been taught that there's nothing we can do about it.
Right. It's tax and spend with no like assessment along the way.
No accountability.
No accountability. With the county, for example, with Douglas County giving funding to Bert Nash, is there any kind of data that's showing that X amount of dollars equaled X amount of outcomes, positive outcomes there? I'd like to see that.
There's actually information saying that they're not doing it right. I mean, you brought up Bert Nash, the Treatment and Recovery Center, the county gives them a pre-funded amount of $900,000, almost $1 million of our money. And it doesn't seem like they expect much in return when citizens are being criminalized for trying to go there and get help.
Can we have a little bit of a cost-benefit analysis here? Same thing that happened with COVID. Can we get some kind of an assessment that showed that closing down schools saved how many lives, and that mask saved how many lives, and social distancing saved how many lives? They're just moving on from it all. And we're all just kind of just fucking going along with it,
well,
not demanding anything out of anybody. Especially, obviously, if you supported all the COVID stuff, you're not going to. But the tax stuff, I just really think that, it should be a bigger push. And that's going back to reasoning to go to these meetings is, you learn about how these things work. And I was surprised at how very little discussion took place between the three commissioners back in the summer of 2022 when they raised the property taxes double digits from the previous year, from it was like 2% up to 12%.
Okay, I got to interject here. You just talked about how they don't talk. Okay,
yeah.
So I had a conversation with a commissioner here recently, and I said it was about a subject. I can't remember what subject it was. But I said, now, have you talked to another commissioner? Have you talked to other people about that? Well, I can't. I can only talk to this one commissioner, because if I talk to somebody else, I'll be violating COMA. And see, this is the reality of what we deal with in local government, especially when you have a situation where you have a city manager or an executive power, like a city manager, county administrator, a school superintendent, same thing. These are executive level power structures. And what the board is around them, the board is a supervisory power, but it's not an individual supervisory power. It takes multiple of them to get together on the same page to tell that executive to do anything. So basically, what you have is a situation where the executive does whatever they decide to do, whatever they think is best, and then it takes several of these people out here, the commission, the board, whatever it is, to get together to say, no, we don't like that. At the same time, the commissioners out here that are supposed to get together and say, no, we don't like that, they can't talk to each other, so that you can never really form a consensus, except for in that 1 or 2 hours a week or a month or a whatever segment you have to have a meeting. The open public meeting is where they're supposed to do that. Now here comes the other problem. What commissioner or what elected official is going to come lay out their true feelings and take the chance of alienating a voter or two in a public meeting? If you guys are coming to these meetings as a commissioner, as a board member, having not spent the hours of research to look into these things, you're basically trusting somebody to tell you the truth, and we've already learned that that's not a good idea. No, the participation at the meetings, that's really the crux of the problem. In my opinion, as far as moving anything around here, we're still not getting down to what to fix the kids themselves, but again, that's going to be a case by case, and I also think that some sort of therapy or some sort of method of an outlet to get that stuff out of them.
Well, you know, I went to school to be a therapist. I was a marriage and family therapist. I worked as a family therapist, and I don't know. I just think that from a social aspect, I think therapy has caused a lot of the issues that we're encountering right now, just as a society. I think a lot of the therapy, because therapy is so prevalent, you know, well, the ideas behind therapy obviously originate and are taught in college universities, which are very, very liberal and slanted to the left. And especially when it comes to therapy and counseling, it's very postmodern, heavily influenced by postmodernism, heavily influenced by feminism. And so then, you know, those ideas go out into therapy, and since therapy is so prevalent, those ideas just start to seep into society. And I don't think that that's good. I don't think a postmodern view of looking at life is a good one for the individual or for society as a whole. And I think an example of that is you just see a lot of like feminized men around lately,
Okay.
who openly will talk about their feelings and whatnot as if it's no big deal. And that's a radical shift from how we normally operate. And so I don't think that prescribing therapy to wholesale is a good thing, especially since I don't think it does a good enough job of teaching personal responsibility
So-
like therapy should do ultimately.
Are you saying that Commissioner Patrick Kelly more than likely had some trauma in the past that he went through some therapy for?
No, and that's what I'm not necessarily.
And the reason I say that is because you talk about the feminicity, the feelings, and all that. I'm going to bring up the conversation that I had with Patrick Kelly last night. I've already told you about this, but so I asked Patrick Kelly if there was a time that him and I could sit and meet about the treatment and recovery center, which he does have oversight authority over as a commissioner for the county. And he's unwilling to meet with me in person because he would feel unsafe because of the way I have presented myself in the county commission room. And I was just blown away by that. He wants to have a phone conversation. He wants me to send him what I want to show him. Problem is, Patrick, and I'll just tell you this right now, I'm not going to send you those things because I'm not letting those things out of my control until I know who I can trust and who I can't. And with the idea that you're unsafe to talk to me, I don't know that you're all that trustworthy.
Well, it's so unreal. I mean, we now live in a society where men have the upper hand by publicly proclaiming just that they feel unsafe, you know. Meanwhile, you know, it reminds me of kind of a similar thing that those, it was like in the summertime of 2022 as well, there was an article written trying to show how it was Shannon Portillo, who was a county commissioner at the time, Shannon Kimball, who was a school board member, and then also
It was Courtney Shipley, wasn't
I
it?
think it was Courtney Shipley at the city commission, and how they've experienced all these kind of threats and stuff like that, without giving any specifics.
Now, mind you, not a single threat had actually happened.
Right.
What you guys heard at the city commission meeting coming out of Ted Boyle's mouth was a threat.
Right.
Not a single threat.
It's like they play the victim, that they feel unsafe because people come in and say words that they don't like and challenge their authority.
Or are passionate about something
Right.
that is wrong in their area, and they seriously want somebody to listen and do something about it, and everybody ignores it.
Right, and so with that article I was just mentioning, with those three women that they mentioned there, are highlighted there. I went in one of the meetings. I just asked, like, so where are these police numbers? I'm sure since there were such big threats that you called the police and got an incident number and stuff like that. And it's like, meanwhile, from my time protesting and campaigning, when I stood on the corner every day, I have a stack of incident cards of people doing stuff.
I got
to
a
me.
stack of them here from protesting the homeless camp out there.
Right, of things people did to me.
When he tells me that he's not going to meet with me, he tells me that his feelings are valid, and that he has the right to feel afraid of me, and there's nothing that I should discount about that at all. That I should just accept that he's scared of me and that he doesn't feel safe meeting with me. He said it's okay for me to think less of him as a man, which I do. But yeah, that's a nice way to shut things down and limit. Yeah, he told me I could send him an email, and I told him I would, but and I also told him that I'd probably have this phone conversation with him. But quite honestly, I don't think there's any point in the phone conversation, because if he doesn't feel safe meeting with me, I'm not sure how he could feel that anything I have to say would be all that important, because everything that I've said in the past was just threatening to him.
Yeah, and so everything about him talking about his emotions there is an example of what the attack on masculinity has done. It reverts back to what I was talking about with this postmodern worldview and this feminist worldview. Patrick Kelly is the result of this idea of toxic masculinity, where, traditionally men wouldn't be talking about that stuff, but here we are openly. Not only is he openly talking about it with no shame, he's actually using it as a power leverage move to say, I'm not going to meet with you because I feel unsafe and I'm the victim. You've never actually done anything to me to make me feel unsafe. You've never threatened me. You've never said anything to me. You've never done anything. The only thing that he pointed to is that you called one of the other staff members woman, and she's a woman, and so that goes back into the, again, this postmodern worldview of these names and stuff. It's like, now it's insulting to call a woman a woman. She's a woman. I don't understand.
My viewers, and there were comments that I really didn't like, calling her fat and all this. I never said that to her.
No,
I never called her a bitch. I never called her the C word. I never did any of that stuff. But here I'm offended.
And that's the only thing he can point to, and he's the victim. Like, I can't meet with you, Michael, because I don't feel safe.
This is the same thing Casey Toomey did with me when I was trying to work on the Community Police Review Board, and the fact that they were appointing a bunch of biased police officers to that board, and tried to meet with Casey Toomey, and she would not meet with me at all. And this is a city staff member she's from the city manager's office, who was in charge of the Community Police Review Board work group development, just refusing to meet with a citizen out of some. Patrick Kelly actually had the nerve to tell me that I need to adjust my tone to get a meeting with him.
Right.
Adjust my tone.
Yep. He's in the meetings. He's telling you how you need to present yourself better, more appropriately, according to him, to come and talk to him about his job.
Right.
You need to have a better tone when you talk to me. And so that's, again, we're getting into another issue that should get everyone pumped up and having an eye on their local government. That's an instance of how they operate down there. County, city, school board, they try to restrict. Just listen to their rules that they read before general public comment. They say you can't even use foul language.
I already
This is America,
told,
motherfucker. You can say foul language.
And I got to tell you about that. This wasn't in anything that I've talked about yet, but there was an officer there, Bishop, a female officer. I spoke with her a little bit.
This is last night?
Yeah, at the school board meeting. And I told her, I said she needed to relay to that commission and let her people know that there was a challenge coming. That if they're going to have that kind of stuff in their rules, and they're going to prevent vulgarity in their rules like that, and they're actually going to say it, that they're preventing it, I'm going to come in and challenge it. And I told you guys that this is an area I'll challenge these things, because you can't do that. The county commission has already learned this, and that's why they've rewritten their rules. I let you guys know, I've given you fair warning last night that this challenge will be coming. You need to remove the statements about vulgarity from your rules for public comment, because that is a violation of our First Amendment.
And you know, it's rich Patrick Kelly trying to say you need to change your tone in one breath, but saying that he's got a right to his feelings, to have his feelings a certain way. Part of
My
what
tone
makes-
is my feelings.
and that is the emotion behind the speech. Oftentimes what's more important is the feeling behind it, and it gets captured in certain words. And now you've got elected officials saying you can't use certain words, you can't have that tone, essentially saying you can't have a large portion of your message be delivered the way you want it to, because I don't like your tone and I don't like what I consider foul language.
So
Well,
now
who
wait
gives
a minute.
fuck?
Wait a minute. Patrick Kelly is telling me that I have to adjust my tone to speak to him because my feelings don't matter.
Right, yeah.
But
Yeah,
I
I
have
mean,
but
everything.
I have to accept
And that's
that
where
he's
they get
scared of
into
me
that.
because his feelings do matter.
That's where they get into that double standard. They always get into some kind of double standard. The only thing that fucking matters in their worldview is their fucking feelings and their fucking.
And you know what, guys?
Doesn't matter what you're
I'm at
thinking
that
or
point,
anything.
Justin. I'm going to stop it right now, guys. Here's the Patrick Kelly video. Go ahead and listen. Patrick, I told you we were going to have transparency. This is the kind of transparency I do. If you don't like it, I guess we can't meet.
Hey, Patrick. Patrick. Is there a time that we can get together and discuss the TRC?
How about we set up a phone call? Would that be okay with you? I'd be happy to visit with you. But based on your interactions with the county commission, I'm not sure I feel totally safe. meeting one
Totally
and-
safe.
Well, I'm being honest. I mean, you're
Is
the
this the
language.
narrative that we're going to perpetuate, that my language makes me unsafe?
I will say that, Michael, what I've experienced in our meetings has been aggressive.
Oh, okay. And that makes you unsafe.
Do you want to hear my perspective, or are you just going to tell me what to think?
I'm just surprised.
Well, that's fine. You can be surprised. You asked if you could meet with me, and I'm allowed to put parameters on that. You may think I'm less of a person because of the parameters I put on it, but I am fully able to put my own parameters on
Okay.
it. I'm happy to meet and talk to you about it.
Well,
But let's set
unfortunately,
up
a phone call
conversation.
isn't going to be able to give us the opportunity to go over the information and the
It may
items.
mean that you won't be able to film it. You're right.
It's not talking about filming it.
Okay. I'm just telling you.
It means that I can't, it's going to be difficult to show you video of what happened inside there.
You're welcome to send me anything that you like, but if you, I'm not gonna, I feel more comfortable with a phone call.
My use of a camera limits our interactions. Is that what?
No, that's not what I said.
I heard that you were right there. You said making an issue
You-
that I can't film it.
I said you won't be able to film it if we meet on the phone.
I don't need to film it if we meet on the phone. I
Okay.
don't need to film it if we meet in person. I'm trying to have a legitimate meeting to discuss a legitimate issue, and I'm getting that my county commissioner, I don't even know what to say to the whole unsafe thing. Do you know that I got threatened in the city commission meeting
I
the other
don't
night and nothing
know that.
happened? Should I feel unsafe because
don't
Teddy
know.
Boyle threatened me?
You can feel however you want to feel, Michael.
Okay.
Okay, I'm not telling you, and I told you, like, I can feel whatever way I want.
I understand. But there's a legitimate issue with the TRC that I'm trying to bring to you.
Then
and,
if you
and a
care
phone,
about that, then a phone conversation would work, right? Otherwise, it seems like you
A
have a
phone call.
secondary motive there.
a phone conversation will get us started.
Okay, let's start there. You can also
I'm a-
start.
I-
You can also.
Go ahead.
You know, you can also maybe change your tone a little bit when you come to talk to the county commission. Not calling my colleagues woman, right?
Okay.
I mean,
So I get-
that is belligerent language specifically designed to be aggressive.
Oh, okay.
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 I mean, you may disagree.
So when I came in there and I announced my intent to stretch the First Amendment because of the way that you guys have limited it in there with other people, that had no bearing on how that was viewed at all, huh?
No, it doesn't to me.
Okay.
I mean, I think you have the right
Okay.
to say whatever you want.
Right.
But I also think that I have the right to feel like certain amounts of your language are not productive towards a good conversation.
Okay. And
violating your right.
and you're able as a elected official to limit me because of that?
I don't limit you.
You're limiting us to a phone conversation.
You still have an opportunity to express your views. You
Okay.
can also come, I said phone conversation. I could have said no, Michael. I could have said no at all. That's not a violation of your right to speech at all. I don't have to accept it.
No, I'm just making a point that a county commissioner is using my speech in the county commission, which if it was threatening, the Douglas County Sheriff's deputies were there and were more than ready to follow your lead in telling them to arrest me. You could have chosen to arrest me at any point in time you felt that threatened, Patrick. But you didn't. Instead, you're going to limit us to phone conversations. I'll have a phone conversation with you because this is an important issue.
Okay.
But know that I'm not playing this I'm a threat thing with you. So,
The way I feel,
yeah, the way you
I
feel,
feel
you know, what you're
interrupt
talking
me.
about. Okay, that's fair.
all right? So the way I feel, I'm totally allowed to feel the way I feel.
Mm-hmm.
You may disagree with it. When you come to speak with the commission, I don't tell you how to feel, do I? I don't tell you, I don't belittle you and your feelings. I don't tell you that what you
No,
think is
you just
important is-
you just limit things afterwards and act like I'm a threat.
But I don't tell you how to feel.
Okay.
You're telling me and belittling my feelings as not being true and not being valid.
I've belittled your feelings.
You have. You told me they're wrong.
Okay. You know that this is an amazing conversation, man. I'll make a call. Who do I call?
Why don't you send me an email asking to schedule a time to visit, and we can visit. But you have to be open to hearing different perspectives than your own.
Okay, you need to understand that everything is completely transparent as well with me.
I don't have any problem with that.
Good. We'll
Okay.
talk.
Excuse me.
Excuse me.